All right, so it's been about a year since I installed my complete compressed air system. And before that, I'd been running just this compressor and this air hose reel for about a year and a half, 2 years. Unfortunately, yeah, I just kind of procrastinated and let this thing sit. But it's been about a year now since I've added my drain system and my filter system and my 3/4 inch line system. So I want to give you some updates here on how it's going. So the biggest question I get is, how is this timer working being mounted here? And has the press-in plug fallen out or failed? And no, I do realize that this is not ideal. This definitely wasn't made for this application. I really don't like how that plugs in, but I got really lucky with this conduit box here, this cap, and then cutting this hole out. This spaces it perfectly. It keeps it from being able to actually physically come out, and this lets me see my lights so I know this is functioning properly, and I can also adjust my timer setting without taking anything apart. So that's all been working great. No problems from that whatsoever. I've really only had one problem with this entire system, and that was pretty much slowly over time. I would let the compressor air up overnight, and I'd come back the next day and it will have dropped from like 175 psi down to 100. And eventually I started noticing a puddle here on the floor, and what had happened was this ball valve cracked. And so for $5, I went and got a new ball valve. I actually extended this out, which lets me install everything a lot easier. And this ball valve actually is pretty nice. It can be turned either way, which makes threading all this on a heck of a lot easier. And now I'll air it up, leave it sit overnight, and come back the next morning, and I haven't dropped any pressure. So that was my only leak in the system. It's fixed now. Every time I turn the compressor on, I see a lot of water come out. So that tells me gravity and letting the hot air cool down through this copper tube is really working well. Gravity is allowing all that condensate to flow right back down through our hose, down to the bottom of the tank, and then that auto drain valve is shooting it outside. So I really couldn't be happier with that. And up until I fixed that leak, I hadn't seen water anywhere in the system. I have been painting a lot lately, so I'm running grinders and DA sanders and paint guns. So this compressor is cycling on and off all day long. So just recently, within the last week here actually, I've started noticing this puddle over here. And with this Amazon filter setup, it's supposed to be automatic. And so I kind of wanted to watch it after I installed it and see if there's any water coming out of it, and then I'd worry about installing drain lines and stuff. But this one here in the middle, you can actually push on it and drain it by hand manually, and I've never seen water come out of it. And then this is the desiccant filter. So this is honestly just an empty chamber right now, because I'm not gonna probably ever put desiccant in this. Really probably could have just installed these two filters. This one, you can't push on this to manually drain it. It's just gonna auto drain. So that's what it's doing. It's small enough amount of water. I'll probably just leave it. I could put a bucket under it. I don't think it's worth the hassle of trying to run a tube to anywhere though. So again, I'm never gonna run desiccant in this, because then you can get that desiccant dust in the system, which can shorten your life of your air tools. You know, if I was gonna run desiccant in this, I would have to get another one of these filters and then put it on this side to catch the dust. But if I'm not even getting any water out of the second stage, then what's the point of running desiccant there? So this blue line's been pretty awesome. Knock on wood, haven't had any leaks at any of the fittings. It's held up great. Gosh, I love that copper tube though. It looks cool. People ask me about it when they come in the shop, and it just works great. And it was so cheap, you know, so simple. So our blue line coming over here to my first work bay, I am glad that I hard installed my air hoses at each bay. That way I'm not stealing them and walking off with them and misplacing them and forgetting to put them back where they belong. It's here to stay, and so it keeps things organized. I am looking for a better solution to store the hose. I've got a couple different hangers I'm trying right now. I'm not really that happy with any of them. The drain here, I have drains at each hose station. I've never seen any water come out of those. So that tells me we're catching all of our water down there, which is great. These drain valves at each hose station are really nice. It takes like 2 seconds to drain all the air out of the system if you need to service the system or something. It's pretty loud, but it's very quick, so that part's convenient. And then these high flow Milton fittings, absolutely worth it. If you haven't already switched to these, go get them right now. The only thing I don't like, the aluminum is a bit soft. They're a little more susceptible to damage. I'd probably try to find them in brass if you can find them in brass. But other than that, man, all my tools work so much better now that they're flowing the correct amount of air. And then here, my fume sucker. I don't know why I didn't hardline this thing in sooner, because I use this way more often now. Anytime I weld, I turn it on because it's always plumbed in. All I got to do is hit the on button and she's running. So I put that pressure regulator there. Haven't touched it since I installed it. So simple. I've checked the drain valves a couple times. Haven't seen any water there, which makes sense. If I don't see water upstream, I shouldn't see any downstream. And then coming into the plasma area, I've got this awesome system from HTP. It is working outstandingly. Just had that one leak right during the installation. Got that fixed up. Haven't had any problems since. I was depressed because they had a big Black Friday sale last year. I think I could have saved like $40 or $60 off this system. But again, we got the ball valve here, so I use this all the time. I've got a garden hose hanger over here. This works a little better. Still, I think what I'd really do is I'd put a automatic Flexzilla hose reel or something on here, or maybe a hand crank reel. They're just so expensive though. They're $100 to $200 for a good reel. So we'll just live with this for now. But again, this is the 4-stage. So you go through your filter and your water separator, then you got this giant desiccant filter, and then you have another air filter after the desiccant to catch that desiccant dust. But these have the auto/manual drains. So I've never seen a drop of water come out of those, and as long as that's the case, I'm not gonna worry about putting desiccant in that filter either. So we've got our hose coming down. That's kind of hard routed. Comes over here into back of the plasma cutter, and then I got the pressure regulator right there at the plasma cutter. So that's set for the plasma cutter, so I don't ever have to worry about putting too much air to it, because I will use this hose for airing up tires, painting, sanding, whatever. Depending on the tool I'm using, I will adjust this, and so I can't ever adjust it too high for the plasma cutter because of the regulator. And then if I have it too low, like maybe I was using the paint gun, it'll air out and flash a light at me telling me I don't have enough air. So I don't have to worry about hurting anything by not having enough air there either, which is nice. And then for this reel here, so it used to just be this reel mounted to this compressor. At the end of the night, you know, turn the ball valve off right here, and I would shoot my air out, take all the air out of this line, and it would reel up. Well, now with so much volume in the system, I have to stand here for like 10 minutes to do that. So it just keeps air in the system all the time now. And this thing just doesn't have enough spring to suck the hard hose in. So the fix for that is to completely disassemble this entire thing and then clock the spring tighter so you have more spring force, and then it's supposed to suck it up just fine. But I just haven't had time to do that. It's kind of a pretty involved thing to modify. So if you buy a new one of these, just go ahead and do that before you even install it. Of course, every night, turn my master switch off and shut the ball valve here so it can't leak out. Now, before I installed all this, I could spray air on something and you could see the moisture wicking out around it after just a couple seconds. Absolutely nothing to even see there. And this is just being fed right after our first filter system. And just a cheapo Amazon filter setup. I think that copper tube's doing all the hard work for us. And no, I still haven't installed my T-line to go over to the car lift because still haven't had a scissor lift in here for the past year. But I tell you what, as soon as I get another scissor lift over here for something, this car lift is getting an air reel because I put an outlet on this post last year. I use the heck out of this thing. I use it all the time. I'll never install another car lift without an outlet and a compressed air hose reel on it ever again. It's just, you use it way too much. So thanks for checking in and watching the update. If you're sitting on the fence about putting a dryer system on your shop air compressor system, get off your butt and do it. You're never going to regret it. It's absolutely worth it. You'll be so happy with how everything works, you'll wonder why you hadn't done it sooner. So I couldn't be happier with mine. Money well spent. So thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you in another video.